I was like, my man.
I'm a worm.
I'm a worm. That's what you're going to be focusing on? I was like, you must be fun at parties. My goodness. You know, like, come on.
Yay!
Yeah.
Welcome! What's up, guys? Welcome back. I have with me today a very special guest, MissLalaVT.
Yeah, VT is like the username just so people know that I'm a VTuber, but Lala, Miss Lala. Yeah.
Well, today I have Miss Lala as my guest. Miss Lala was a cosplayer back in the day and now a stylist, VTuber, and many other things.
Yeah.
Welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. Oh my God, this is such an honor. I think this is like my first outside of my avatar, like talk interview. So big honor for me. You know, thank you.
Yay.
So, oh my
well,
God.
Thank you for honoring us. I appreciate it.
Oh yeah, popping cherries on this set. Yeah.
Literally, because your iconography is very cherry heavy.
I always have cherry earrings in some shape or form. Even my hoop earrings. I have a huge collection, and I just think it's really cute. So it's like a nice little uniform touch.
You have the coolest style. It's very 1950s. If you're not watching on YouTube, if you're watching on like Spotify or audio only, Miss Lala is a VTuber in a diner, 1950s diner, which I think is so cute. I was watching one of your streams earlier just to like prep and do my research and stuff.
Thank you.
And I told you when you came in, tried to match the vibe, tried to wear like the red lipstick and stuff.
You were totally in the vibe. So cute. She's got the cinched waist. She got a little flared skirt. She got the red lip.
Yeah.
I'm here for the red lip revolution. Don't be afraid of it. There's actually this phenomenon where like wearing a bold color, whether it's like I always have red nails and red lips. That's like my signature. And it's such a powerful like power color that it literally will sometimes change your energy.
Yeah.
And so I encourage it. Try it once. Everyone, there's a red that works for everybody.
I agree. I was telling you when you walked in that I kind of looked at myself in the mirror earlier as I was leaving and was like, okay,
She's like
I'm seeing the
I'm
vibe.
hot.
I'm getting it.
She's like, oh, wow, I'm hot. Oh, no.
I understand. Well, I'm so glad that you're here. Thank you so much for coming and doing this. We were just on 2-ish sets together. We did the anime IRL boxing.
Yeah.
And then the music video that Danny Phantom did for the Saja Boys.
Yes, and you were a fabulous Mira.
Thank you.
So amazing. Yeah, she had this. It was like it's not a scythe, but it felt like that. It felt like it was like
it's like scythe adjacent.
Yeah. So cool.
Thank you.
How your costume came together. But that was really fun. And I would go to boxing events so much more often if it was like debates. Like anime debates. I'd be so much more invested.
Yeah, honestly, same.
Yeah. And I mean, hello. And also like the bunny girls. I was like, okay, you have my attention.
Yeah. I agree. I think all the ring girls should have bunny outfits in cosplay as well. I'm going to start that petition.
Yeah. I agree. I'm here for the revolution of ring girls that they should be in bunny costumes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
You heard it here first. We're starting a revolution.
Yes, absolutely.
Good. Well, how was your experience on the music video? I kind of want to start talking about Danny's music video because it's fresh and it's new.
Yeah.
It was a cosplay music video, kind of choreographed dance. It's many things, and it's hard to describe.
I feel like it's a spec music video, a spec live action music video. I feel like, because it was like, from what I understand, Netflix was aware of the project because I think they were trying to get like some permission for licenses, but it wasn't, officially under their sanction, but they're aware of it. And there definitely are now. It's like, what? It's 9 million views. It's so crazy.
I checked it earlier. It's at 9.3 million
I was like,
views.
that's crazy. I was like, we were like, oh, maybe we're hoping that maybe it hits 1 million. I was like, that'd be cool if it hits 1 million. I was just like, what do you mean it's over 9 million? That's crazy.
It hit like 2 or 3 million like within the first 24 hours or something like that, which was nuts. Like, So cool.
So cool. And, you know, what I really appreciate about that is, you know, my professional background is I am a stylist and costume designer and in film and television and like in entertainment. And I have styled for like commercials and branded stuff. I've worked with other creators in the space and stuff. And, you know, not everybody, I will say that there's a very like DIY mentality, right? Where it's like, okay, you know, we have this idea, but maybe we try to do it as inexpensively as possible because at the end of the day, we're just trying to do, you know, we're trying to get like the idea across. And from the very beginning, like Danny approached myself and my husband, who was the cinematographer on the video, and was like, you guys do this like professionally. I want you guys involved in the production. And we're like, okay. And we're like, you know, sometimes, you know, the way we work is maybe, you know, some things may be more expensive maybe than what you may be used to, just because like, for instance, we had a techno crane on set, you know, that's not on a like normal cosplay, like photo shoot thing normally, you know what I mean? And so that's a very expensive piece of equipment. And Danny was like, nope, I want to treat this like a music video. I want this to feel like a music video set. I want the appropriate prices because then when I do this in the future, I want to do the things bigger and better and elevated. And I mean, Danny is so charming and he's such a sweetie pie, but he like professionally he was so serious about like, I really want to do this and do it right. And I was like, okay, cool, that was awesome. And so you know, I got to pitch idea. I treated it like I do every other job I do, you know. I was like, okay, there's different ways we can do X, Y, and Z. Shared some things, and he was very trusting and of you know, some of the ideas I pitched. And I was, you know, very grateful that he trusted me. It was like we had met like what? He DM'd me and we had just met like 4 days prior.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we met at the anime IRL boxing event. That was the first time I spoke to him. Yeah, we were there, you know, and we talked magic, and he was like, "Oh yeah, you know, I know like Julia and Lloyd and all these other people, and I've met them because via the VTubing community."
Yeah.
And we just got along. He's a nice guy. And then he was like, oh, so I heard you do this thing. I was like, oh, this sounds like a fun project. And then it was like, oh, no, you want to do it for, okay. And it was literally like 4 days later or something, or 5 days later.
Yeah.
So it's like, and then like by the end of the project, it's like, oh, I feel like very fast friends. And everybody on that project was so lovely. And
I agree.
it was like, it really, and everybody was in it. Like there wasn't like one person, like in terms of the cast, overall crew, there was like one person, but like overall, everybody was in it. Like, like taking it very seriously. Everyone put their all into it. And everyone was really excited and passionate. And it was such a wonderful vibe on set. And I've been on a lot of film sets. And that is sometimes a luxury to have such a positive like vibe and experience. Not impossible, but, you know, it was very refreshing actually. And it was, you know, it makes it when you're like doing like hard deadlines where you're like, not getting sleep or you're having to make like 5 jackets in like 36 hours or whatever, you know, it makes it like, we did that. And it was worth it because everyone was so appreciative, so nice, like, and it looks great. And it was such a positive experience. It was really cool.
Good. Yeah. I was going to ask what the difference was between that experience.
Sorry.
No, it's perfect. It's perfect. You answered my question.
I'll keep on talking, yeah.
No, I was wondering if like what the major differences were like between a major film production or a major production set versus something like that.
Well, you had the benefit of you had 4 people who had active film production experience on that set. You had myself, you had my husband, then you had Julia, and then you had Lloyd. And Julia was a producer, and she also was acting as like an AD. Lloyd was a director, and also, you know, in many ways, he was also kind of co-producing and helping. But because they are film professionals, it really, the one thing that I have learned working is that it comes top down. It like has a trickle effect. So if the people at the top have their shit together, they have their stuff together.
You can curse.
I was like, I don't know, maybe there's a
I'm
3-year-old watching
York
it.
Too.
Okay.
I'm in there.
Yeah, okay.
I couldn't stop myself if I wanted to.
Okay. I was like, the kids, think of the children. But they like from, they wanted it to be organized, and just like, we had a call sheet, we had all this stuff, and on a shoot you get your call sheet, it has your report times, it has the things that are happening, this isn't that. And so those were all done like it would be on another shoot. It was a smaller scale, but there are small scale normal shoots. I've been on commercials where there's maybe 12 crew members, but it's for, like a baby company, or, a baby brand or something. And so it was just a smaller scale, but really the professionalism was on the same, like on a similar level. There wasn't anybody who was just like screwing around, whatever. Everybody was very respectful when they were, if they was told to like do something or like to be somewhere or something. And, even down to like, we had 2 PAs, we had Pancake, we had Pancake, and then Aaron, I think, yes, maybe.
I think so.
Yes, and he was so sweet, and I can't believe I had like 2 hours of sleep. I think that's why my brain is like a little crazy. But they were on it and so nice, and they did it with like great energy and attitude. And when you're on set for like 12 hours, like having a good attitude is everything, because everyone's tired at the end of a day like that.
Yeah.
And so like, if it's okay to be tired, but it's not okay to be rude or like explosive or whatever, because we're all people trying to do the same thing.
Yeah.
And there wasn't, for the most part, there wasn't really anybody like that. And so I think that it actually was very akin to what I'm used to. I've been on other shoots where, like, for instance, like, where I've worked with content creators who are the producers, and because they don't have that experience, so, there's simple things like we don't have a bathroom. So how would people, they got to do their business. What are they going to do in a paper cup and throw it out the window? Like, what are you supposed to do? So, there's literally some logistical things that you're just aware of if you work in production. Like, where's the parking for all the crew members who are going to go? We have to make sure we have food on set. 12 hours is a long day. You got to make sure you have your crafty, but we can't have a crafty person, so we got to make sure we take care of that. A lot of logistical things, and they did a really awesome job making it feel like I was just on another regular shoot. So.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I don't have any experience on like production sets or anything. That was the closest I've ever gotten. So
how was that for you?
It's crazy. It was really fun.
Yeah.
I was telling you before we started, I had 0 hours of sleep the night before, so I was like really crashing the entire time.
She looks so good, though. You couldn't tell. She looks so good.
I do appreciate that. I was trying my best. I had an amazing time. It was so much fun. It was so cool to do. Like, I even left being like, we had marks. Like, I've never done that before. I was so excited. But I was also half awake, so I was like, we had marks. It was so cool. But I was like so stoked to be a part of it. I sent Danny a message afterward being like, that was so cool. Thank you so much. Just very grateful. I feel like I met a ton of people.
Yeah,
I got to like hang out with it. Like everybody, like you were saying, I think the greatest part about it for me was that everybody was so like cool. Everyone got along and everyone was so nice.
Yeah.
So I was
because I will say that is the difference. Like it's a crapshoot when you're on a project. You don't know the personalities that are going to be there. It's such a gig industry working in entertainment that, you're on I joke about it all the time. I'm an overshare. And as a VTuber, like privacy is a huge part of like being a VTuber. But when I first started, I was like telling everybody my life story. I was like, at 4 years old, my trauma started. People were like, you keep some of that information to yourself. I was like, I'm such an oversharer, but that's also because like the nature of the life that I'm used to. You know, if I'm on a film set, you know, I'm traveling to another state, I live somewhere for 3 or 4 months working on a project, I'm seeing these crew members more than I'm seeing my own family. You know, you get to know each other very intensely in a short amount of time, and then you may not see each other ever again. And, you know, and it rinse, wash, repeat. So you just don't know. Sometimes you're working with people you're familiar with, sometimes you're not. And it can be great times, it can be terrible times, you know, it could be a mixed bag. And so that was really awesome. That was great.
The energy was fantastic.
Yeah.
I would say. Yeah, that was great.
Yeah.
So you are a stylist and a costumer. Can you explain in layman terms what that consists of for anyone who might not know?
Yeah, so I feel like, you know, in cosplay, you know, you are the one who is responsible for putting the look together of the character, right? And, you know, there's different avenues to professional costuming. It doesn't have to, you know, there are professional cosplayers, right, who are, you know, like Yaya Han, like just, I mean, like you know, like people who like their careers are cosplay, which is incredible because when I was doing it, that was like a lot rarer. But you know, that's one avenue, which is considered like that's professional costuming, but within a niche. Then you have styling, right? And styling is a world where you're creating a look, but you're not necessarily making it from scratch. It's about maybe renting items, putting things together. Maybe you're building some things, but it's much more fashion oriented, and that's the intention of the look, right? You're probably that person. Styling can be used for day to day. It can be red carpet, special event, or whatever. And then costume design, you know, there's private costume design, like private client costume design. And the world that I work in film costume design is like, I'm the head of a department. So I'm creating the overall look. It is impossible when you receive a feature film script that has 50 characters, that then there's 10 script days in the script, and then there's 25 changes per character. I am not sitting there sewing every single item. That's never going to happen.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Sounds terrible.
It's wild, you know,
not
like
terrible, but tedious.
Yeah. You like that's not how that world works. You know, the designers on those projects really is the lead creative vision for how the character looks and works with like the hair and makeup departments in terms of really creating the character. So costume design is just live action character design. You find out, like, you know, it's all about the story, right? You're trying to say a lot about a person, that an audience member, when they're watching the movie, that they're supposed to understand who this person is by just looking at them, right? So my job is to give that visual clue. And so, but I do so, you know, I went to the Fashion Institute of Technology in New York. So, you know, I have a degree in fashion design, and I was a cosplayer, you know, so I do know how to sew. So, you know, I do like to work on stuff because there is something satisfying about, you know, doing something with your hands. I just can't do all of that work. And I'm, you know, I don't pretend to be an amazing, you know, tailor. You know, I'm not about to work at Seville Road tomorrow. But, you know, I know how to put something together and make it look decent. And I love just the creative process. I love research. I love, figuring out a color story, you know, pulling inspiration from different sources, creating mood boards, talking with the director, talking to the talent, the actors, and getting their input, putting it into this like little mind blender thing, and then a costume pops out of it. And so, and I enjoy the challenges that come from that world, like tight turnarounds and like, how are we going to do this? And it's very addicting. Like, you're like, oh, I have this, seems like an insurmountable task, but I have to deliver on this insurmountable task. So what am I supposed to do? And so you're constantly problem solving, and you have to be a person. But yeah, that's kind of that's a little bit about what my world is like. Yeah. So that's why, like, on Your Idol video, something like that, like doing a big group, that's actually more in line with what I know how to do versus like me sitting and making one very detailed costume. I can, but I like bringing a whole picture together in terms of like a scene. So that's really like my specialty.
Yeah, I watched some of the BTS where you came in with a whole clothing rack.
Yeah.
And everyone was trying on everything. Is that usually the process on like production sets?
Yeah. So the process usually is, I'll get a creative brief. It will sometimes literally be a deck, like a accumulation of boards, and that can be from the director, a producer, client, whatever it is. And we talk about the ideas, and then I do my own research, and I kind of get a better feel to try to hone it in a little bit more, because they may be, I kind of want it to feel like this. So for the Your Idol thing, what was cool about it, in comparison to Soda Pop is all the looks are very clear. You see everything very clearly in that number.
Yeah.
What was cool about Your Idol is that a lot of the details, because the characters are very silhouetted during that dance number, it leaves a lot of room for interpretation. And Danny was like, I'm totally down for interpretation. And for me, that's fun, because then that means that I have flexibility of what we can do. And so that meant, I was like, okay, so we want to definitely make sure, because K-pop Demon Hunters obviously is like, there's a lot of traditional Korean fashion references and historical costuming within the character's design of the film. But then in that number, they combine that with like contemporary streetwear. So it was cool to kind of figure out, okay, I have less than a week, really, by the time I have these conversations and trying to source, to find very, very specific traditional garments, which we couldn't, spoiler alert, that's why we had to make them. And besides the hat. And then we had to put, and then we had the streetwear, and that's what the fitting was. I had all these different options based on different ideas. I used kind of like the silhouette I saw in the film as a jumping off point, and left it up to interpretation. And my job is also like, let's say you're the talent I'm working with. You need to feel comfortable in what you're doing, and that it helps you find your character. So I love collaborating in that. Like, so like in that behind the scenes, it wasn't like you're wearing this look and that's it. I was like, does this feel like Baby Saja? Do you feel like this puts you in that mood to like move a certain way? Like a good costume helps the performer find their character. And so for me, that's why everything is a collaborative process. And so, so that was really fun to like get to know the guys, and everybody was down for. I mean, I was on a mission to put leather pants on somebody. Danny definitely didn't want to be that person, but Steven, who was the last person to come to the fitting, I was like, guess what, Steven? Because you're the last person who arrived to the fitting, you're gonna try on the leather pants. And lo and behold, he was able to do splits and made everyone was gagged because they didn't know that he could do splits in the first place.
Steven, he can do a split?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
That is crazy breaking information. Is that in the BTS video? Oh my God, I gotta find it.
It was so crazy because he was like, I'm so surprised because, I pulled several different options, but I knew they were dancing. So the garments needed to be able to move. So they didn't feel constricted. And certain garments felt a little constricted, and you can do little things to help it have movement, adding gussets or whatever. And
what is a gusset?
A gusset is like, it's like an insert that allows like a little bit more movement in terms of like seams. So for instance, like Julia, who is a professional, works professionally in stunts, let's say the stunt person is wearing the same costume that the actor is wearing or a performer is wearing in, whatever is being filmed. But sometimes, let's say it's a really cute, like, designer jacket, but you can't move your arms more than that. A gusset is like, basically made out of similar fabric, and it'll be inlaid into the garment to allow the flexibility of it. So for instance, Johnny, who is playing Abby, his pants were a little, they weren't giving the movement that he needed. So I in the pants, I put in a gusset so that he could be able to do all the movement he needed to do. And so Steven, when he was trying, he's like, oh my God, this is like stretch leather. I was like, I know, because you gotta move. But then he just like surprised us by, basically doing Cirque du Soleil moves in the middle of this dance room. So yeah, I couldn't believe it. It was so crazy.
Man.
So crazy. But so and that was really fun because I feel like that was also a great icebreaker.
Yeah. Totally.
So, yeah, that was a good time.
They got to put that in the next one. If they do soda pop, we got to get Steven in a split.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. Okay. Well, then I want to talk about when you started cosplaying and how you got into that, since that's kind of like where it seems like your journey began.
Yeah.
So were you always a nerd growing up? Like, what did you, that's my favorite question to ask people. Like, what were your fandoms that you were obsessed with growing up?
What was my fandom gateway drug?
Yeah. Exactly. Rebrand. That's the perfect way to do it.
Yeah. What was my gateway drug? Like many young Americans, I definitely feel like Pokemon was one, but I found out about Pokemon like a touch before it came to the States, because my cousin, he was in high school at the time and he was doing an exchange program in Japan.
Okay.
And he sent like a care package to his siblings and to us, cousins. We're all very close. And this care package had all these goodies from Japan, and they had these cards with these animals looking creatures, and it said pocket monsters on the back of the cards. And I was like, oh, what is this? This is so cool. And we're like, oh, it's really cute or whatever. And then lo and behold, it was Pokemon. And so Pokemon definitely, I was a Cartoon Network Toonami kid. But in terms of fandoms, I was a huge Sailor Moon girly. For sure. Big Sailor Moon girly. I loved Outlaw Star. I loved, I was really into shoujo. I was really into, so like magical girl stuff, I was really, really into. But I also really loved really dark, depressing, like romance, like manga and stuff. I'm like 12 and being like, wow, this is like so like crazy and traumatic. Anyway, and they're like, the cartoons are for kids, and they're talking about like, I forget there's like code words to say, but there's a lot of very adult themes, very adult themes in terms of like, like depression, mental illness, and I was just like,
this is where the corruption begins.
Literally. But I feel like I definitely I loved it. I remember like being in Barnes and Nobles, and I wouldn't buy the manga. I would just spend hours sitting there.
Yeah, I would in like the coffee shop.
Yes. I was like, I wouldn't even sit in the coffee shop. I'd sit my ass right in the aisle, like in the little anime aisle, manga aisle, and then I'd just sit there, and they'd be like, you actually have to buy something. I was like, I already read like three of the graphic novels in this series. So what are you gonna do? Or what are you gonna do? Delete the knowledge from my brain? Go ahead, good luck. And so what are you gonna do? Give me a lobotomy in the middle of Barnes and Noble? And so they were like, so I was super into that, like very into Final Fantasy. I was into video games. I was a big JRPG and platform player growing up, and so I was like really into, I was one of those obnoxious, I would try to emulate poses and how people spoke, very, part of every weeb's journey, my brother is having, like, he just started watching anime last year, and he literally he'd be like, Lala, nandeska. I was like, what do you mean? Where do you learn this word from? Do you even know what you're saying? What are you doing? And he's like, well, that's like what they say. And, so everyone goes through it. Everyone does a little Naruto run, on the way to the grocery store,
Yes, once. It's a rite of passage.
Yes, exactly.
Totally.
Exactly. Yeah.
So when did you start cosplaying? Did you make your costume? What did you cosplay?
Yeah.
All that good stuff.
So my grandmother, so I'm Puerto Rican. My grandmother, when she came from Puerto Rico to New York, she worked in like the sweatshops in New York in like the 50s. And then and 40s. And then then my mom and my aunt are identical twins. My aunt, my titi, she then ended up working in fashion design because she learned from her. And so then they both then started teaching me how to sew when I was younger. And my family is a very creative family. We, like, everyone has some sort of creative pursuit in my family. And so they weren't like, you know, I remember cutting up a pair of socks and sewing on these like caca, like little embellishment things onto it. That didn't make sense on like my Meg Barbie doll from Hercules, you know, like trying to give her that, and it looked like shit, but it's the thought that counts. And you know, they're like, "You're doing great, sweetie." So they like encouraged me to like, you know, dive into crafts and sewing. And I grew up watching like classic movies and all that. So I really like I fell in love with like fashion and costuming, and but I didn't know what like cosplay was a thing until like a friend told me about it. And at the time, and I discovered cosplay.com, which was a forum site that, you know, if you know, you know. And it was like the site. It was the cosplay site. And, you know, they had image galleries and you got to meet people. And I remember I was 12 and I was like, oh my God, there's like conventions and you like can dress up. And I got so excited. And my cousin and I were like, you know, we're thick as thieves. She's like my best friend. She, you know, and she was super into anime. And we're like, we can do this together. And so we decided my first cosplay ever was Selfie Tilmit in Kingdom Hearts. So she's a little yellow jumper with a jump rope. She's one of the Destiny Island kids. And then my cousin was Tifa from Final Fantasy VII. And my aunt helped me make my jumpsuit. You know, she's like the jumper, the little, you know, dress. It was yellow. I remember this yellow upholstery fabric from a place in Jackson Heights in Queens. And she hit up one of her old, coseras, you know, like one of her old seamstresses. And I learned from them kind of a little bit of the process. That's like, you know, I'd only like my portfolio at the time was extravagant sock garments. Right. And so
the
like
best
here
in town.
Yeah. Let me tell you, Vogue, watch out. So so they started to show me and teach me the process of what that was like. And so that was the first costume, but it was made from scratch. And then from it like opened a whole world. Then I went to the convention. It was so much fun. I was 13. My first con was Otakon 2003.
No way.
Not 2013, 2003. Much earlier.
Wow.
2003. And back when it was at the Baltimore Convention Center. And I remember the first time we walked into the convention center, and the gathering area of that con was like the fountain area. That it was like the spot for like group photo shoots, and where everybody wanted to meet up, you always met at the fountains. And my cousin, my mom and I, we were looking over like the railing and looking at all the cosplayers, and it was so surreal. Can you imagine being like a 13-year-old kid, like seeing like, you're like, oh, I'm like this, you know, at the time anime and all this stuff was not to the level of mainstream it is now.
Right.
You know, and I was like, oh, there's so many people who are into this, so many people who are dressed up. I'm seeing all kinds of characters, you know, and I was like, this is so crazy. This is so cool. And I had a great time at that con, and I was like, I want to go to another one, and again. And then I wanted to, you know, start developing my skills further, because I started to find it very satisfying to be able to be like, yeah, I made this. Like, it was like a point of pride. And so then I would choose characters I liked, or, you know, if I started to make friends, we tried to do group costumes. And I tried to like teach myself a new skill with every project or something like that. And so I really enjoyed doing that for quite a while. And then eventually what made me like leave the space was that I wanted to do it professionally. And so I got I was starting to the shine of recreating costumes was starting to go away because I wanted to start making original stuff. And I wanted to work on my skill and really do that. And my husband actually was the one who really encouraged me to be like, you can do this professionally. And I was like, no way. I'm a big fan of it. I didn't think you could. I mean, I know people can, but I thought that they just won some magical lottery in the sky. They got the job. I didn't know that there's like a pathway. And so then that's when, I really pivoted. And then, but I'm so grateful. I was like, it was like from 13 to 19 maybe was when I was a cosplayer. So like in some of my most formative years, and I had some great experiences, and I'm very grateful. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And it like put you on the path that you're on right now to doing all of these crazy costumes.
I know.
That's so cool.
I know. Can you imagine the amount of pride my mom had? I was like, look, Mom, I didn't do drugs or alcohol in school. I did it as an adult. I didn't do it as a kid. I had it when I had adult money, not when I had allowance money.
Your frontal lobe was fully formed.
Yes. All my allowance money went to all my crazy wigs and like, super shiny, cheap, terrible satin that frayed like crazy, like that.
I'm well aware.
So bad. But so I'm grateful. Kept me off the streets. But it was great. I mean,
cosplay is amazing because you get to meet people who are into the same things you do. You are, and do the same things that you do, and the sense of community is unparalleled, I would say. Even now, I just was at a con this past weekend and was talking to somebody in passing at the booth, and he was like, well, I'm at a con, so I'm home. And I was like, oh,
that's nice.
Make me cry in the club right now, my guy.
In the club really are for you.
Right.
Yeah, to that point, I do feel like I have mixed experiences in terms of those things. One of the reasons I also ended up leaving was because, unfortunately, I had some not so positive things. But that's to say, you're talking about a hobby where it is about the self, right? There is a lot of pride associated with what you do. And that invites all kinds of personalities.
Right.
That invites, you'll have wonderful people, and then you'll have other people who, they use it as a way to validate themselves. And so because of that, if they feel like that's threatened, they will then act a certain way. And it's very interesting, when I was in it as a young kid, it feels really overwhelming when like those things would happen. And then like now as an adult and looking back, it's like, well, yeah, I know why those people I as an adult now, I was just like, if you just have bad energy, I'm just not going to waste my time. My life's too short. I got other fabulous people to be hanging out with. I'm not going to be wasting my time with no like people who have shitty attitudes.
Right.
And so, but when I was a kid, you don't know how to, me in high school have a sense of self. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Every single day I wore a different kind of J fashion look, and I was convinced, I didn't even know, it was crazy. So it was, but I definitely think that it has a whole lot of personalities, but I feel like when you find your people in that space, like you find your people in this space. My life best friend I met because of cosplay and LiveJournal, and to this day, we talk every single day. She's like my girl. She's at Anime NYC this weekend and all this stuff, and she's even she's part of my VTuber world and all that stuff. And I'm very grateful because she's a ride or die homie, and we met because of cosplay and our mutual love of Princess Tennis and the musical and all that stuff. But but yeah, we you find your people, and when you find them, it really it does feel like home. Especially because you don't get to see those people all the time, and so it makes it even more special. You're celebrating your hard work, and then you're just celebrating being able to spend time with people you care about, which I think is wonderful.
Yeah
Yeah,
totally. That's awesome. very heartwarming to hear.
Yeah.
I am sorry that you had a terrible experience, but
I think like you're gonna have good and bad experiences in life. You know what I mean? It doesn't stop happening. You know, you're gonna have your good, you're gonna have your bad. The world is, there's way too many people in this world that it's impossible to navigate without having like a range of experiences. And so,
totally.
I think, you know, you know, it happened, and I think it taught me a valuable lesson. And what was cool was that the good thing was that, well, that happened. And so I wasn't necessarily held back from being like, okay, you know what? I'm going to take a step back from being in this industry and in this space so I can focus on something that I've really fallen in love with, which was the art of costume design and just like, you know, and pursuing that. And so for like, you know, what is it now? It's like my 12th year of being a designer. Like, you know, for like 10 years, I kind of avoided being involved with the geek space in any shape, way, or form. And then life will find a way.
Full circle,
and then it comes back. It started to come back because I started to get involved with like a geek fashion show at San Diego Comic-Con, and I started to meet people. And I'm so grateful because, you know, like I was saying earlier, coming back as an adult, like you just approach things differently. And so it's just like, I was like, man, now I just have good times celebrating the things that I love and doing it. And now it's just been compounding, especially now with VTubing and stuff. So yeah.
It changed the trajectory of your life in a good way.
Yeah, it did.
Ultimately.
Yeah, no, it did.
Yeah, the silver lining, I think, is worth it. It sounds like.
Yeah. And I try to like, you know, I'm someone who like, it might suck in the moment, but, you know, I like to really navigate life as positively as possible and try to spin it. And, you know, those are just moments of growth in life that make you a stronger, better person. And so, you know, even though I may have not had positive experiences, I also had incredible experiences.
Right.
And I also learned a lot of crazy stuff. Like, you know, in the film industry, like sometimes you'll get you'll get a call at like 9 o'clock at night for like a change in a costume that plays at 6 o'clock the next day. And you're like, what am I supposed to do? Well, let me think back of when I was 15, trying to figure something out in a hotel room where I had no resources, and I made it work. And I made some sort of prop out of a fucking, you know, cup in the hotel room with a paper straw and blah, 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 and you make it work. And so I think like that is like a life skill that I learned that, you know, where it's just like, well, if I'm in a chaotic situation, I look for like the solve. You know, and it's I kind of like lock in, and you know, and that's
absolutely
something. Cosplay like totally is because you know that's because of cosplay. So
problem solving is a huge thing in cosplay. I feel like it's one of the things that I take with me everywhere as well. I was at a friend's house a couple of days ago, and we were trying to film like content, and she couldn't find the remote for her LED. So it was only one color, and it wasn't matching the vibe. And it was one of those things that was on the TV, and it looks like what color your TV is to like do the background. And I balanced a business card that was in my purse on my phone, like my magnetic phone stand, just off the camera far enough where it was like, oh, pink. And then it was pink. And I was like, got it. And they're all like, what the fuck? And I was like, the cosplay. This is what cosplayers do. You just figure it out somehow.
Yeah. And you think outside of the box. And that is so like, it's so crazy. Because then it also then becomes a fun story. To share with people, you know, and it's like, yeah, I did that.
Right.
I'm ready to be a gaffer on film sets now. Thank you very much. You know, like, you know, give me my union card. But like, I think that's so cool. Like, you're just like, oh, we can figure this out. There's a will, there's a way. Let's try.
We can figure it out. Exactly.
Yeah, I worked with this. I had a costume supervisor who I worked with on a movie, and I was in a moment of crisis where I couldn't find a solution. And it was a very, you know, we talk about difficult personalities, you know, film industry is rife with them, and you don't have like HR department to protect you sometimes, and you just got to like navigate it. And there was a lot happening in this particular situation, and I just couldn't figure it out. And the director had asked, they're like, oh, we want like some sort of floral lapel thing to on the thing. I was like, you think I got Narnia in my ass, homie? I can pull whatever out of nowhere. Like, I'm a fucking wizard. Like, are you kidding me? And I'm like freaking out. I'm like, oh, what am I supposed to do? And so my supervisor, she was like, wait, we got this. And I was like, I don't know. And I was just so like over it because, you know, the person was being very difficult. And she was like, no, we can work this out. I was like, we don't have anything that could work. She's like,
where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah, there's a will, there's a way. And so what she did is that she took like, we had a silk handkerchief, and then we just kind of styled it and pinned it in a way where we were able to kind of fold it and make it look like, you know, you seen like those tomato roses kind of thing. Like, so we were able to kind of finagle something, and it worked. And the director loved it. And I was like, that's crazy. And she's like, what is it? She taught me that like basically try, you know, like she was like, what is it? Nothing beats a failure but a try. That's what she said. And she was like, because you just don't know. Yeah. You chase your curiosity because you don't know where it'll lead you in life. And also, if you experiment, you'll figure it out. And I loved that. And I use it all the time. Nothing beats a failure but a try, because like, use a business card and you made like a different color thing. That's crazy. You know what I mean? Like, so cool. And I think like people do that all the time in cosplay, and it is honestly like so impressive.
Yeah, you might as well try. Yeah. What's the worst that happens?
You already think you're going to fuck it up. So might as well, you know, what happens if it goes right? I think a lot of the time we focus on like, what happens if it goes wrong? And we don't ask ourselves what happens if it goes right. Yeah, I agree. And that can be in the process of creating something. It can also be with ourselves in terms of like chasing opportunities. You know, what happens if they don't like us? What happens if, you know, if I reach out to this company because I want to do like a sponsored cosplay video or something? What happens if they don't like me? Well, you already think they're not going to like you. What happens if they do like you? Right. And you don't know. Yeah. And so, you know, I like to also, you know, think that way too. So yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, yeah.
If you were to cosplay again nowadays, would you, how do you feel about that? Have you ever had the inkling since then to be like, maybe I'll pull something out for something in the future? Like a design really hooked you or anything like that? Have you thought about it?
The only time I will explore that is like Halloween, or be like, I have this like short list of like, oh, you know, these were ideas I've always wanted to do. And then I hope one day I can. There's one idea that I wanted to do, and I have yet to see anybody do it at a con. And maybe I just haven't been locked in to see it. I really want to do this. I want to grab somebody else, and I want to be Panty and Stocking from Panty and Stocking. But I want to be just a giant 2D cardboard panty. And I want the other person to be just a giant 2D pair of stockings. Almost like a walk around panty and a stocking. That's so just to be a meme. I've had this, ever since the first season ever came out, way back when, I always wanted to do that, and I never got to do it. I actually did cosplay for the first time at a convention in June. In a very, like, in a long time. It was a redeem from my community that there, you know, we had hit a milestone, and I was like, okay, I will cosplay a VTuber at OFCAI, which is a VTuber convention in San Jose. And I was like, okay, I will do this. And I didn't tell them what I was going to do, but they were like, okay, I wonder who you're going to do. I wonder what you're going to do. And so I decided to cosplay Ironmouse, who is one of the, you know, very well-known VTuber. But she has a model that is a worm. Yeah. It's an MS Paint worm that another VTuber had gifted her. And I was like, I'm going to make this fucking work. And, so you know, we're friendly. And so, you know, so I felt very comfortable doing that. But, you know, her manager, who I'm also friendly with, I was like, so by the way, I owe my community like a cosplay. And so I wanted to let you know I'm doing Mouse. And she's like, oh, really? I was like, yeah. And I just sent her like a zoomed in photo of my pattern piece where it's just the face on like, brown craft paper.
Yeah.
And I was just like, and she goes, no way. How is that? What? How are you going to do that? And I was like, difficultly, because when I was cosplaying, I know how to sew. I never really got into more of like the world. There's like 3D printing. There's like armor building. It's evolved so much, which is very, very cool. But by the time I left, I never really dove into those skill sets. So I worked with foam for the first time, learning how to carve it and like what density and stuff like that. Like I know about it conceptually, but I haven't made a costume with my own 2 hands using foam before. And so I made it out of foam and wore like, black Zentai suit and just like ran around the con with my Crocs and this like
so
worm
funny.
costume. And it was so silly. And I love that. Like if I was to dive into cosplay, I'm in my silly era. If I was to do like a cosplay, I'm, or something else that I'm really passionate about is reinterpretation of designs into fashion. To elevate it and to bring that sensibility, like, merge those worlds. That's something that I really, really love too. So those were like the 2 areas I would see myself dive in. But I don't know if I would, I give you a lot of credit. It takes so much. You're wearing a wig, you're wearing shoes, contacts, you got all these kinds of pieces. You might be 10 times as uncomfortable,
it's
but
rough out here.
Yeah, it is so rough. Oh my God. I was like, oh my God. I like, and the way that I tickle the itch is that I plan my outfits like it's cosplays for a convention now. So like, I'll be like, okay, these are my 2 looks for day 1, my day and my night look, that's how I like scratch that itch in a weird way. Cause
that's awesome. I love that so much. The silly cosplay is so fun. How was that received? Was it received really well?
Yeah.
Did people know who you were?
No, they didn't. So one person came up to me and they're like, am I allowed to ask who you are? I was like, sure. I was like, I'm Miss Lala. And the person was like, no way. I'm literally on my way to your panel. Because I was like wearing it right before I was doing a panel at the con. And they're like, no way. I was like, and I'm like, in this fucking like black suit with this pink worm, and
incredible.
And then they're like, that's so crazy. I was like, wow, there you go. Hello.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. So that was fun. And it was such a niche specific costume. So if you were not aware, you were just confused why there was this like worm wandering around. But if you knew, like, it was very cool to do that and meet like other, fans, like Ironmouse fans and stuff like that. And it was fun. It reminded me of like why I did like doing cosplay, because like you're celebrating something you really love, and I love VTubing so much. I love it. And, Ironmouse was the reason why I ended up, pressing live as a VTuber. And so for me, it was like, oh, it's just cool to like pay an homage to someone who I can call a friend and is also someone who is such a trailblazer in terms of what they're doing and who literally like changed my life in terms of that. And so I was like, oh, I remember this feeling. And this is why I loved doing cosplay back then. Because you're like, there's the pride of the craft, but then there's just a pride of you're a fucking nerd, and it is so cool to celebrate that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's so cool. That's so funny. I love a good meme cosplay. Yeah. It's just there's such a pressure when it comes to cosplay sometimes, mostly self-inflicted, where if you're working really hard on a build and you're trying to make it perfect and everything needs to be done on time and you're a one-man show and you're putting all these pieces together and some of them start to not fit and it's this whole thing. But then when it comes to stuff like that, it's so fun sometimes to just be like, I'm a worm.
It's freeing.
What's up, guys?
It's so freeing, right? Because there's like no expectations, right? Like I didn't know, like I would never, like I I figured out, so like one entire seam of that worm is just like, it is a wonderful display of hot glue and shitty fucking seams. And I would never, if I, you know, if I was back in my peak, you know, cosplay days, I would have never dreamed of going out with that much hot glue. So I was like, I don't fucking, I'm a damn worm. Yeah. And people are looking at it, they're like, wow, really, you hot glued a seam? I was like, my man.
I'm a worm.
I'm a worm. That's what you're going to be focusing on? I was like, you must be fun at parties. My goodness. You know, like, come on, give me a break. So like, I love, you know, I was just, and I literally was like, oh man, I hope people don't. And I was like, nobody cared.
Yeah.
Because it's a silly costume, you know? And I think at the, you know, it is really freeing to have like a costume like that you can wear, you know, and, you know, in the sea of other ones that you want to wear, it's nice to have one that is just like a silly one.
Yeah.
You could be just a silly little guy, gal.
Silly little worm.
Or non-binary pal. Yeah, just be a little silly little worm.
I agree. I agree. Well, speaking of VTubing, let's talk about how you got into VTubing and the design of your VTuber, which I think is so cute. I love that you're in a diner and that you don't serve food, but you serve fun.
Thank you. I think you're the only person who like actually noticed that, because people were like, every single time I go live, they role play. I was like, you know, I should actually say this is like legal disclaimer. I've been VTubing now for like 3 years, and I think I've never really actually served food in the diner, but a lot of good times, just not actual edible food.
Right, exactly. But that's what people are coming for. They're coming for the good times.
Yeah.
But it's such a cute brand. Like I was in school for advertising, so I love a good commercial or a good like advertising moment. And I was going through all your merch and stuff, and I thought it was so cool. I love how you designed everything.
Oh, thank you.
So I would love to know how you came up with the idea and how that all came to be.
Yeah. I discovered Twitch in 2020. You know, everybody was either, you know, playing Animal Crossing or baking bread, you know, and wiping their ass with anything but toilet paper, apparently. Yes. And so it was you know,
all that extra fabric came in handy.
Yeah. It was like a box of scraps. You're like, oh, I guess I'll never need that little sliver of burlap. But you know, my husband actually, he started getting into watching us, like, some streamers, and he was playing Apex at the time. And there was this fabulous female streamer. Her name is Lulu Lively, I think. And she's an excellent, like professional level, you know, like Apex player. And he would watch her to like see like the technique and learn. And he like told me, he was like, you know, you'd be probably pretty good at this because you talk a lot. I was like, what is that supposed to mean? You probably couldn't tell, you know, but I was like, okay. And then he's like, yeah, because, you know, like she's this, like, she, like, people watch her because she's so incredibly skilled, right? Like, you don't come to her stream because she's sitting there talking to you and like hanging out. You know, I think now, you know, her content's changed a little bit, but at the time she was really like known for her like Apex playing. And I was like, okay. So I didn't have anything else to do. So, you know, and so he was really sweet and helped me kind of start. And I streamed for showing myself for a hot second. And then, but I've worked behind the scenes for so much of my life now. You know, costume design is not a role where you're front and center, right? And so I was like, oh, I don't know if I like being in front of camera. I don't really know, like, to be perceived in this way, it's so strange. It's so foreign to me. So I stopped, and a friend introduced me to VTubing as an alternative. Like, they're like, you know, I don't know if you know about this thing, but you don't have to show your face. And I was confused because I saw anime characters on screen, and I was like, is this a new anime? And they're like, no, these are streamers, and they're using avatars. So this is all live. They're being tracked live. And I was like, what? This is so cool. And the first like VTubers I saw were 2 members of this group called HoloLive. And I think on like the recommended page of that video was an Ironmouse highlight reel. And then, you know, and the HoloLive stream was like in like predominantly Japanese. And then I saw Ironmouse and I was like, oh, she's Puerto Rican, she's loud, she's crazy, like so it's not only reserved for like an Eastern market, there's like Western VTubers. And then I started watching, I was like, oh, you can do anything as a VTuber. And I was so struck by that, once again, scratching like this creative itch. Oh, you can kind of create and build and do what can I do? So I started to then, like watch more VTubers, just watch streamers. That's when I finally started to get like the hook of Twitch, and I started to watch a lot of people. And I started to understand the culture, you see your streamer go live and you show up. If you're a regular in the community, maybe that streamer recognizes you, asks how you've been doing. Maybe they follow up on a discussion point and you're like, oh, yeah, you build a relationship. And I'm from New York. And just literally the format, I was like, oh my God, it's, what this reminds me of? It's like when you go to like your favorite, like food spot and, like the servers or something. And then I was like, oh, it's kind of, or like, like a diner or something. And I was like, oh, that'd kind of be fun if it was like a, like a stream where it's like a diner and it's like a waitress, because inherently like, that's like the vibe, right?
It is perfect.
And then I was like, oh, that's it. That's the idea. And so literally it was like the way that live streaming works and like working with a community. And I just saw like the parallels to like literally like food service. And there's something really comfy about that. Like, and I like to consider that, I'm not a complete cold-hearted bitch. I'd like to think. I'd like to think that I'm a bit more warm and open and friendly. And so I was like, I feel like that match.
I think so too.
Yeah. It's good. I slipped her 20 before we started. But we, that matched like my personality in terms of like being able to talk to people. And so I felt like that was, there's a lot of VTubers who do very big, epic, like mythical inspirations or things. And I was having difficulty figuring out like if I wanted to dive into it, what was like my way of doing it. And there was something very refreshing about like a simple, normal human who just likes to talk to people, but like in this diner. And I love vintage fashion, and I was like, it's got to be like a 50s diner. Yeah. Like everyone thinks like you think 50s and you think diner, you think jukebox, you think poodle skirts, you think all this like kitschy, campy like imagery. And I was like, yeah, you embrace it. Checkered floor. Like you immediately think of certain things. And I was like, that's just fun. Like
it is fun.
And I wanted the look of it to feel like if you stepped into like what is it, like the sci-fi drive-in theater in Disney. Like I wanted it to feel like very theme parky. So I wanted to feel themed and colorful, technicolor, and so that was kind of the inception point of how I came up with the idea. And then like Lala is my IRL nickname, and so that's and Miss is just a very like sounds like old-fashioned kind of thing,
it's Miss Lala.
So I wasn't very original with my username. It's literally my IRL nickname is what my nephew called. I'm TT Lala to my nephew. Aww. My sister gave me the nickname after the Teletubby, but that's fine. We don't have to talk about that.
Wipe that from the record, everybody.
From the record. You don't know that lore, it's fine. Don't. I won't cosplay a Teletubby, I promise. Unless. But yeah, that was how that happened.
Yeah, it's amazing. I love it so much.
Thank you.
I am obsessed with it, actually.
Thank you.
I think it's perfect. I have no notes whatsoever. You were in the Baby No Money 1-800 music video as well, which is really, really cool.
So crazy.
Yeah.
So crazy. I think, if you told me 5 years ago I'd be a cartoon character on the internet making dick jokes and I make like having like a second career out of it, I would have called you fucking nuts. Like that was like nowhere in my life trajectory.
Yeah.
But it totally is. And I can't believe that. That was so cool. That was, once again, thanks to Ironmouse, you know, and it was an adventure trying to like record the footage that was needed because I was at OFCI at a convention, and it was like one thing after another. We had to switch hotel rooms and get internet. It was like, it was a whole ordeal, but like we made it work. You know, that's the one thing that is like an obstacle in VTubing is definitely like tech.
Yeah.
It's a huge part of it. You know, I grew up being a Mac girl. I didn't even know where the settings button was when I first started using a PC in 2020. I was like, what the hell? Like, I don't even know how any of this works. And so like, that's been like it's not like a learning curve. It's just like a straight line, you know, like in terms of like learning about all the different things, but, you know, made it work. And I was it's so surreal. Like, I don't know. I started doing this thing 3 years ago. I started with like a little like static image, you know, and I was just having like fun with it. I had no expectations. I just wanted a hobby that was a break from my work, you know, and I started to really just enjoy it. And then it just kind of kept on growing. And, you know, just like in cosplay, you know, you acquire skills or you save up to do your dream costume. So in VTubing, it's like I started, you know, I saved money to have my dream model. And that's the models that I'm using, or the modeler I work with. And I love it. And then I'm just, it's very surreal to have so many people be so receptive to it. Cause, you know, I never imagined, you know, I don't know, it's very surreal. So yeah, the 1-800 was crazy though. Like I was like, okay, I can't believe this is happening, but okay, like I guess it's out there. And then like, you know, you know, even friends who have nothing to do with cosplay, VTube and whatever, who know of BB No Money. And then I was like, I'm kind of in that music video, but you won't recognize me. And they're like, what? I was like, yeah, you know, and I feel like I'm coming out all over again. I'm like, I have something important to tell you. I'm a cartoon character on the internet. You know, like I feel, you know, it's like, as you know, bisexual, how many times I'm going to have to come out of my life? And so I'm having to do it as a VTuber. So, you know, so it was really, really cool. And I think he's awesome. I love that he's someone who has a lot of eyes on him, and to highlight this industry that's really relatively new, right? It exploded in 2020, really. I think it kind of started around 2017, but so it's like 5 years old. It's very like, it's so cool that it's starting to become more and more well known, and he decided to do that and work with someone who obviously is, you know, really well known in this space. And I think it's really, really awesome. I think it's so cool.
Me too.
And so, yeah, I just like that he was like, yeah, let's do this. Him and his director, you know, they mix Clockwork Orange with VTuber and Office. Just so crazy. And I was just like, it's so cool, and so very grateful to have been a part of that. Yeah.
I think it's really, really cool too. I love that you are having as much success as you are. I feel like you really deserve it. You bring like such a positive energy.
Oh, thank you.
Wherever you go, and can be rare.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate that a lot.
It's crazy because like I will say, like, you know, I've worked doing one career for a large part of my life, and after a while, you know, I was trying to chase opportunities to have recognition for, I think everybody, if you work really hard in something, you'd like to have recognition, however you define that.
Totally.
It can be, you know, you want to be nominated for an award, or you want to just be, you know, highlighted in press or something, whatever that means for you. You want to be a guest at a comp, whatever it is. And I tried chasing opportunities, and I felt that I was always underestimated or dismissed because compared to some of my peers, I was younger, or my portfolio didn't have as many big blockbusters on it compared to other people, and so I was dismissed. And you know, like, and it was very frustrating for me because I love I love the craft. I love the creative aspect. That is where my geek really comes out. I really love deep diving into all the different ways you can be creative in whatever you pursue. And I was like really frustrated, and with the pandemic and everything, I was and having a lot of time to reflect on my work-life balance. You're working on a film set. It's 12 to 14 hours a day. That's not including your commute, so I looked at my life and I was like, this is kind of crazy. And so when I stumbled on VTubing, and it's like, and I just did it as a hobby because I wanted something to decompress from what I was doing. Right. And then I could also like be adult about my video game time and be I have a couple of hours, a few times a week where I have like concentrated video game time and nobody can bother me.
Right.
But it is so wild because I'm so used to not be like, I've developed a very strong imposter syndrome. And so one of the biggest challenges I've had as a VTuber, with all the wonderful things that have happened, the opportunities, I'm very, very grateful, especially in like 3 years. Like when I look at like the first 3 years of my career, like nothing could compare to like the stuff that's happening in VTube. And like I became a Twitch ambassador, I was a guest at a con within my first couple of years. I started working with companies like Bethesda, like I was like, this is crazy. My first 3 years in my line of work, I was like still like working at the bottom of the barrel, trying to, at minimum wage, trying to make it,
Right.
And I've had to like really work on like my confidence and my self-esteem, and like, so it is very surreal in the sense to have opportunities like that, or like for you to say that. I was like, oh, that's crazy, because I don't know how, I didn't know how to navigate those feelings. And I think a lot of creative people will always, and if you're neurospicy or whatever that is, you might talk yourself down. And it is, it's very kind of you to say that, and just other people to share that. It's like, oh, wow, that's kind of crazy. Like, oh, like here I am so many years later where I feel like I'm starting to get my flowers a little bit. And that's really, that's very validating. And I am here to spread the sickness of VTubing. I want everybody should try it. There's like no gatekeeping, it's like, it's a medium that is available for anyone. And I'm seeing more and more like professional filmmakers get involved, like animators who, the film industry is really tough right now. And so they're jumping into this, and I don't know, it's crazy. I don't know. It's crazy.
It is. But
thanks for letting me ramble.
No, of course. And I truly believe that. I think that you deserve all the success. I think you are amazing. I think that I'm sure that part of the reason that you reached such a high level of success so fast is because you bring like such great energy to a room.
Oh, thanks.
And I think that that is something that people think is really refreshing. And I think that that's amazing. And I appreciate you sitting here with me today, and I appreciate you coming.
Anytime.
I think everyone is blessed to be in your presence. So thank you.
Oh my God. Hold on.
It.
Where's my husband? I don't know. Be like, I got a new wife now.
I do. I accept.
Heard it here first.
Can you tell everybody where to find you online, and also if you have any like exciting projects coming up or anything?
Sure. I'm Miss Lala, MissLalaVT, and I make it real simple. It's the same thing everywhere. So, that's YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Blue Sky, probably your mother's fridge, everywhere. And exciting things. My birthday is next month, so I'm going to be debuting a birthday model. So that's very fun. And now after the Your Idol project, that was, thanks to everybody on set actually being really encouraging, like we did that content day, everybody was really open and warm, and teaching me. I'm now exploring how to combine, my work, my styling, costuming work as a creator, and highlight that a little bit more. I'm now like, my creative gears are turning in terms of how to Roger Rabbit my world a little bit, where I have my cartoon and real life merged together, like with content. And so exploring a lot of different things. TwitchCon is coming up. So, there's a lot of fun stuff. And, I'm really looking forward to the last few months of the year. So
nice.
yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, again, thank you for coming. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah.
I was watching some of your clips earlier, and I came across something that I thought was hilarious, and I would love some maybe a retelling, if you will. You were telling a story that that was basically you were at a doctor's office. And you had to pull up your period tracker.
Oh my God.
And your period tracker happens to be none other than the romance app Love in Deep Space.
Oh my God.